to episode 23 of the Press Forward podcast. I'm Nathan Wrigley, and I want to welcome you back to the podcast. And if this is your first time listening, it's great that you found us. The Press Forward podcast is created by WP & Up. We're a non-profit working in the WordPress space to help you, your colleagues, in fact anyone. You can find out more about the mission at wpandup.org. We'd love for you to get involved with WP & Up, and that can be done in many ways. You could talk about this podcast on social media, or talk about it on your own website. You could rate us on Apple Podcasts, or you can subscribe to us on your favourite podcast player, which can be done by going to wpandup.org/podcast-feed. We'd also greatly appreciate any donations that you'd like to make. As you can imagine, the support that we provide comes with a cost, and so we're asking anyone who feels able to donate to WP & Up to visit wpandup.org/give. By doing so, you will enable us to keep this important work going and to help people who have a real need. You might also like to know that we've started a project over at head2.org. It's a bike ride of some 3,000 kilometres taking place next spring. A few members of the WP & Up community will be making this journey, and there's a couple of reasons that we're doing it. Obviously, it's a sponsored event, and so the money that we raise will assist us. But we're also doing this to raise awareness in the areas of physical and mental health. It's the intention to show that little changes can have a big impact over time. We're not athletes, and we're getting on with our lives whilst adapting them slightly to accommodate the time needed to train for this ride. We'd love you to spread the word about this project too. So, if you want to tweet or post about it, please feel free to do so, mentioning head2.org. The Press Forward podcast is brought to you today by Green Geeks. Green Geeks offers an awesome managed web hosting platform that's built for speed, security, and scalability, whilst being environmentally friendly. Enjoy a better web hosting experience for your WordPress website, backed by 24/7 expert support. And we thank Green Geeks for helping us to put on the Press Forward podcast. Regular listeners will know that we went to WordCamp Europe in Berlin earlier this year. We set up our recording gear in the corridor and talked to many people. It was a lot of fun. The corridor was a little noisy, as you might imagine, but it didn't spoil the conversations. Many of them have already been released, and you can find those in the Press Forward podcast feed at wpandup.org/podcasts. Okay, so on to today's episode. Today I talk with Oliver Sild. Oliver is based in Estonia, and he's really into internet security. Having built websites in the past, he always found himself having to secure them, and so his agency built tools to monitor their own sites. It's a constant battle in which the bad guys make a move and you have to react. After doing this for a while, Oliver and his team decided that their internal tools could be used just as easily by others. And so the company WebARX was born. They have made WordPress an important part of WebARX, monitoring plugins and offering updates, and so that's why Oliver was at WordCamp Europe, to meet the people who use his product. We have a wide-ranging conversation touching upon internet security, how to secure your site, what kind of things can go wrong, who is behind all of this mischief that we hear about online, as well as how Oliver has embraced the WordPress community. And so, without further ado, I bring you Oliver Sild. So today, I'm joined by Oliver Sild. Hello, Oliver.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Have I said your name right?
Yeah.
Sild.
Yeah.
Does it have a meaning?
It's in Estonian. So in Estonian, most of the last names are actually coming from something that is like a physical, touchable things. You know, something like a bridge.
It's a bridge.
Yeah, it's a
bridge. That's what it means. That's cool. So we're in WordCamp Europe, which is in Berlin. Have you ever been to
No, never.
Germany?
No, no.
Me neither. First time.
Yeah, but
Enjoying
it
it?
looks cool.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really, really different feeling here.
Yeah.
Have we tried schnitzel?
No.
Yeah, we tried. It's huge.
Okay, recommendation. Oh, write it down. Write it down. Have you been to a WordCamp before?
No, I haven't actually.
No. First time. Any country?
Yeah. It's actually first time. I've been to like a smaller WordPress meetups, but not actually to the WordCamp itself.
Forgive me for being really ignorant. I don't know a lot about Estonia.
Yeah,
I don't know what.
it's a small country. There's like only like 1.3 million people.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's right like it's kind of in the north. We're like having like Finland is on top of us right now, and then there's like Latvia and Russia on the right side, and then it's a small country.
Do you have WordPress things going on in Estonia?
We have like few meetups, but it's still relatively small country. So there's like some meetups going on in the capital, but it's nothing like big there in this scene.
But you've come here. What are you hoping to do whilst you're here?
I think like we have a lot of customers who are also here, and I think for one of the reasons is to actually kind of get just to in touch with them, get this like contact and this feedback, what you can get from face to face. So I think this is like one of the very important kind of values that we definitely get out of here.
First, just forgive me. It just strikes me that we haven't said what it is that you do in the WordPress space. So tell us a little bit about what your company is and what its history is and what its purpose is.
Yeah, so the company actually born out from a digital agency that was focused on like web security. So we were doing like a secure web development to build websites on. Back in the day, we didn't do so much of WordPress stuff, but we all mainly focused on Joomla and on the other CMSs. So, but we did like our focus was to build secure websites, and eventually we needed tools to automate all that. So we started to build our own kind of a platform to kind of monitor the websites that we have already developed, and it ended up building an actual platform that we now have named as WebARX, which is focused on component security, basically plugin vulnerabilities and so forth, and blocking them in advance so your websites won't get infected with malware. You can block all this malicious traffic and have these people on your websites that you actually want.
Okay, and how long has it been going?
So now it's been 2 years, 2 years of active development, and we launched back in 2018 July. In 2017, in the end of 2017, we were chosen already as one of the top cybersecurity startups in London, so in Ceylon. So it was actually it's been very, I would say, fast journey.
Yeah, amazing, really amazing. So you've come with like a hat on to just meet people who are already customers. Do you also have like the hat on, I want to meet new customers as well, make some connections with, I don't know, other plugin developers or like hosting companies, or are you hoping to get some new business out of this as well?
I think so, yeah. Like usually, like we've been going to a lot of conferences like, like Web Summit and, different like bigger ones, usually with a very strong focus of, actually getting partnerships and customers and so forth. Here, I would say I have a different feeling. I do have like a feeling of more like a community feeling, more like just being open and so forth. But we definitely go and talk to the hosting companies and the different plugin developers who are here. And that's why we're also hosting the this security meetup later today.
Yeah, you got an event. When you were thinking about coming here, was that like, okay, we're going to bring all the team along with us, and we're going to put an event together? Or was that like, okay, we've booked the tickets, what else should we do?
Exactly. It was like very, very random idea. It was, you met Agnes, so she just told me like in the last minute that, hey, why should like, she was going through the tracks, like all this different talks that are happening here. And she was like, there's so much happening, when it comes to security with WordPress. Why is nobody's talking about that? Because there's no talks about security whatsoever.
Really?
Yeah.
At this event?
Yeah.
None?
Yeah.
That's surprising.
Like there's nothing that is like literally focused on security, the whole ecosystem, like the security and, and we're like, okay, let's do a meetup.
Is it a hard thing to, you obviously do it all the time. Do you find people interested in it? Are people willing to talk about security? Or is it a bit like, oh,
security. I'd rather not think about it, because actually at the bottom of it, nobody really wants anything to be insecure, but also it's not the most glamorous of subjects.
It's, you have to make it kind of an easy to understand, but in the same time, if you make it too easy to understand, then you're gonna miss the point. So it is a hard thing to communicate for sure. But I think, it's getting better and better, because, all these different attacks, like you doing the, lives and everything, you have like something happening every week now. So I think it's more and more getting into the eyes of people and into the ears of people. So I think they can't even, ignore it anymore. So this has to be talked about.
Do you think the hackers, the people putting out this stuff, the automate, the bots and what have you, are they just getting better? Do we need to worry about it? Or are people like you actually on top of it? Can you stop this stuff? Or are you in a constant war of attrition? They come up with something, you defend. They come up, you defend.
It's kind of two things. Like, I think it's still like a pretty constant war in terms of, finding out what is happening. We are doing, of course, things like, as I was like, we released this open source static code analyzer for WordPress plugins, which is basically helping the WordPress developers to find like a vulnerable code within their code before someone else does. So we do these kind of things that allow us to kind of be few steps ahead from the hackers. But at the same time, there's like this ecosystem is so big, you still have like this momentum of kind of, feeling like, following the tracks and, finding out what is happening and, trying to mitigate sometimes and so forth. So I think it's both ways.
So what's the talk about that you're giving tonight at the event? What's it? What have you got a title? Have you prepared something, or is it like show up and talk to everybody, or are you going to be on a stage? And
so we're having a small panel together with Raj from RunCloud. So we're gonna talk like more like openly about like what we think about the security in general, what we see are the like bigger challenges, what are the upcoming challenges for sure, and kind of like talk what we see. Like I have some statistics from our end to just show out. And Raj is going to talk a bit more from the hosting side of things and from the side of things of like how he as a WordPress developer or WordPress sites manager or sites owner see the whole thing. And I think it's going to be like a short panel, like 20 minutes. And then after that, like we have pre-ordered a lot of beer.
Hanging out and drinking beer.
And snacks and food and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be more like an open discussion between all the people who are joining.
There's quite a few companies doing things a little bit like that. So there was a few that was on last night. I think it's a really nice thing to do. Have you got feedback about how many people are going to come? Yeah,
we have reached out to a lot of people. I think we are expecting like 20 to 30 people. So we have actually reached out to all the companies who are kind of doing something within security here, like Sucuri. There's Blogwall guys here. There's WP Scan, I think, and all these people who are here and kind of work with this on like towards the same goal. We have invited all of them there, so it's
interesting to see if they take you up on your offer. That'd be nice if you all got in the same room at the same time. Are you all in on WordPress? Is WordPress what you do, or is WebARX? You can use it with WordPress, but you can also use it with Joomla or Drupal.
So our focus from the beginning, because we were not a WordPress agency. So that's why we already had to have tools for securing sites that are running on Joomla, Magento, Drupal, and also like very native PHP apps and PHP frameworks as well. So because of that, we have built the whole thing in a way that it is actually already supporting all the PHP apps. It doesn't matter if it's running on any frameworks. It can be just vanilla PHP, let's say. But we are focusing on component security. So component security is affecting all the frameworks and CMSs. So but
WordPress is the big one. So
it's 35% of the internet, we can't really ignore that.
At your peril. So you just talked about component security. Easy thing to say. What is it? What is that?
Nowadays the big issue with web applications is that nobody wants to really write a code anymore. So while on one hand it's like obvious, it's very productive. You can get the things done really fast because someone else has already written the code for you. So you can kind of put in puzzles like on WordPress, install plugins and stuff. Someone else already solved the problem for you. But the issue is that while you do that, you don't really check who wrote the plugins. You don't really check how well these plugins are written, and you also don't have an overview if these plugins like previously had any issues or if they currently have any issues security-wise. And this is like a very, very attractive for hackers because you can have one plugin that is vulnerable for, let's say, like SQL injection or like cross-site scripting to inject ads to your website, and you need just this one vulnerability, and you can have access to tens of thousands of websites. So this is like this component security from the application side. This has been a problem, years on server side, different Apache models, all these different places. But right now, on our focus, we see that component security, how we call it, like plugins, extensions, like Drupal has extensions, WordPress call them plugins, they call them different names, but they're all components. So in these ways, I think this issue is growing rapidly. And I think this is like the whole thing around these, web development practices and things.
Is it growing? Because it feels like it is. It feels like it's kind of in the normal news.
Yeah.
Not just tech news. There's a significant amount of this stuff leaks into the normal actual newspaper.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got stuff attached to. I've offloaded my life to things online. There's an awful lot of stuff in WordPress databases. Facebook has got a lot of stuff on me. So, I can understand why people are concerned about it. But how do you keep up? I can't even imagine where do you go to find out what the latest threat is and what somebody just dumped on the internet last night?
Yeah, so we have like tools built inside of the product. So we have like a separate tools also that we have built within the team. So like, for example, the static code analysis, which we do, we basically pull all the plugins that we have on the WordPress repository and then run the static code analysis against all of these. So we have kind of a patterns of different vulnerabilities have previously happened on some other plugins, and then we see if there's the same patterns in other plugins as well. So in this case, we can pretty much detect these vulnerabilities beforehand. The other thing is that we basically follow all the security blogs, all the different security databases and everything, and we have like our own separate dashboard for it, which has alerts and stuff, and basically posts in Slack about all these things, and it's like automatically finding all the information from the web, what is coming, concerned with WordPress and security.
Is it ever possible to truly say, purchase any product, your product or a rival's product, that you've got security down pat? It's fixed. My site is now immutable. Nothing can touch it. It's just
there's just so many, even when technically, from the technical point of view, you might be able to isolate it so well. Like you will find, like for example, you lose all the functionality of your website, so it can't be hacked from this side. But eventually, there's also you behind this. So there's this person who have access to the site who can also be hacked. So social engineering is also very, very, like a real thing that can happen also within the WordPress ecosystem.
I remember hearing a story. I don't know how true it is, but hearing a story about some seriously big IT company, and they hired this external guy to come in to sort of vet their security, and the external agent made the bold claim that I will be in your system within 1 minute, and the guys were like, no, what, no, and so he said, okay, can I have the CEO? Bring the CEO over, and so they brought the CEO out, and he said, right, start the clock. And then he took the CEO to one of the junior people in the security team. And because the CEO was stood next to him, he said, can you just give me the passwords? And obviously there's the CEO. And he said, yeah, sure. There you go. And that was it. He was in. Bit of social engineering.
Yeah.
Just look, the boss is there. This request must be legitimate. Yeah, it's too easy, isn't it?
Yeah, social engineering is very, very, it's effective. Like, phishing, all this like spear phishing and all these things. It's just so effective.
Yeah, and is there nothing I mean, I presume there's nothing that you can do about that. You just sort of man the boundaries and hope for the best a bit.
Yeah, well, basically what you can do is try to make your team as aware of as possible from the mistakes like that can happen, or like from the things that, or like the risks that are there, but also in the same time you have to tell your team that if there are something that has happened, you should never feel ashamed of it, because what's really like big issue is that people feel ashamed for like being stupid. But in the same time, actually, this is creating an opposite issue, because in this case, these people are not, willing to say what happened. So it's very important to stay kind of transparent, very open about these issues, and kind of, don't blame people for the stuff that happened because someone was taking advantage from it,
So is WebARX, is it like a plugin that you install? Is it a SaaS solution? What does it look like?
So it's a SaaS solution, but it's a plugin that you install. So it's a both things.
It's a bit of both.
Yeah. So basically, it's really easy to install. It takes you like like 1 minute. So we have 14 days free trial, so people can just sign up, put their website in there, just type in your URL. This automatic scans everything, start right away. And then you basically, the scans, what we do, like monitoring, uptime monitoring, security monitoring, all happens externally. So it's nothing actually done on your website itself. So it's very in terms of resources, it's pretty much nothing. So, but to actually activate the firewall and hardening options and, backups and everything that we have within the plugin, then you just, can pretty much log into your WordPress sites from within our portal, or just download the plugin and install it. So it's really, really easy.
I think a lot of people who are listening to this will probably be, like me, not really an expert in security, got a sort of vague understanding of what it means. But what some of the terms that you just threw out, you mentioned firewall and you mentioned hardening. I hear those words a lot, but what let's start with the firewall. What is a firewall? What does it even do?
So in our case, I think firewalls are also different. We have done a lot of kind of code analysis around different products that are on the WordPress market as well. So there are some of the firewalls that are, just putting a lot of rules into your htaccess code, for example, just, to filter out some very just like basic like patterns, let's say. But then there's also firewalls that are running on DNS, for example. So these firewalls are running, on the network level itself, like Cloudflare, for example. I think also Sucuri does that. So these firewalls really, filter the whole traffic that comes against your website, and basically filter out the, malicious requests like bots and, attacking, attempts and all that. And then there's like endpoint firewalls, like more like WordFence and like ours as well, like where basically it runs before the application itself in the application, but it's filtering all the HTTP requests, and it's not just only on the Apache level. So from this side of things, I think there are like different ways how they can work, but eventually what firewall does is it basically tries to understand what is the traffic that comes to your website. Is it what you want? And if it's not what you want, and if it's malicious, like, trying to exploit some plugin vulnerability, for example, it will block the access. And in our case, for example, it will count how many times this specific IP has, abused the access to the website, and then block it. So there's very different things that you can do with the firewall. So in our case also, there's an option to write your own rules. So for example, I always bring this up as an example, but for example, you can do a rule that will allow you to filter user agents and redirect them to, for example, to a specific website. So for example, if a user agent comes with an old Internet Explorer 6, let's say, you can just create a rule and say, hey, redirect him to this page, which says like, please download Chrome,
The police.
God damn it.
The police website. And so, okay, that's firewall. What's hardening?
So hardening is pretty much like going, there is the thing that with all software that is plug and play, there is default settings. And default settings are never the best settings. Default settings are always made just to, work and to have as, less support as possible. So for that reason, basically, hardening is important to kind of, turn down the features that you don't really use, and make them like, for example, permissions, file permissions, for example, and so forth, to like kind of make them a bit stronger than they would be on default. So under hardening settings, you can find like, blocking XML RPC. If you don't use it, why bother having it? Because, a lot of brute force attacks come through that. So there's like two-factor authentication. So you have like the second step of logging into your website, which you can have on your mobile app. So when someone even finds your, let's say, admin password for your WordPress site, they would still need the actual, physical phone of yours to actually have the code. So there's a lot of things like that, activity logs, see what kind of, what the users have done on the website. There's like a reCAPTCHA, which you can put on your comment forms. Like all these nitty-gritty things that eventually, allow you to kind of improve the security in general.
Making it more difficult for the bad guys.
Yeah.
Just making it more difficult, harder to get in. So WordPress by its very nature is like this extensible architecture. You've got WordPress core and then you chuck plugins, and obviously a lot of people like to put a lot of plugins in, sometimes unnecessarily large amounts of plugins. How on earth do you keep, how do you keep up with that? Because presumably if you have a certain combination of plugins, that might be worse than a different combination of plugins. I mean, how do you even sort of keep up with all the possible things that could go wrong?
There is just so many of these things that can go wrong. So, it's one of the hardest tasks actually is to, build your own, like in our case, like our plugin or like our WordPress plugin, let's say, it has so like very deep features that can affect the website in a very strong way. But, you need this for all these hardening features. So for these reasons, like testing with so many different plugins, making sure there's no false positives, for example, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of testing.
I was wondering if that was it, literally just testing every single combination.
Yeah. But, at the same time, just you try to use as many things that you have already inside WordPress, all the WP hooks and, all these things that you can actually use. But then again, there's also other plugins who might be using these hooks. So there can be a lot of conflicts with, other plugins doing things, maybe untraditional ways. And these things can actually, can cause like conflicts and all these things. So it's a lot of work.
I speak quite a lot to, plugin developers and theme developers and things like that. And there's a certain sense that the product over time, the more hours they spend working on it, the better it becomes. So, okay, last week my plugin, it was okay, and I added these new features, and now it's better. So, constantly you're heading towards the top of this pyramid. I mean, it'll never be finished. You'll never get to the top of the pyramid. But all the time, your endeavor, the amount of work you put in kind of leads to a better product. Whereas for you, it must be slightly different because your product is always working with what other people are throwing at it, the nasty stuff that people are... Do you enjoy the work? Does it is it enjoyable stuff to do? Do you find it do you smile at what you're doing, or is it like incredibly frustrating when somebody comes out with a new exploit and it's like, oh, another one, I've got to start all over again?
No, I think because we don't need to develop the plugin to actually block the exploits, because we have our firewall is modular, for example. So all the rules you don't need to update the plugin to be able to get the newest rules. So everything is coming from the portal, feeding the plugin basically. So for this reason, we don't actually have to do any development for blocking new attacks. So for this reason, I think for us, it's more like very exciting thing to actually see how the whole ecosystem evolves. Like what are the new, issues? Like past week, we had like this, actually, I think it was even on Monday, we had like one plugin that had like this vulnerability with, this index.php thing.
Got me.
So I was also talking to this developer and, trying to understand.
He's here.
Like, I know. Yeah. He's also coming to our meetup.
Oh, nice.
So
nice.
I was talking to him and he was sending me the source code and we were like analyzing together. And so I think it's more like exciting things, to see what can, also others learn from these kind of things. So I don't think it's like too frustrating. I think it's more like exciting to, kind of, it's like a constant marathon.
Yeah. Well, it's like fighting the good fight, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why do Why do people do it though? Because one of the things that you often hear is, well, I only have a little website. You know, my website is, you know,
It's
I'm
the
not
biggest
selling.
myth.
Yeah, I'm not doing anything that would warrant somebody hacking my. But that's not how it works, is it?
Yeah. So yeah, it's the biggest myth. Everyone probably gets is like why the hell would I need any security, because my site is like just a bakery store, some random place, like why would, like, there's no value in it. But the value is in the resources, resources of running this website itself. Like if you have like any traffic, it's already some of resources when you get it for free. So you can take it as like, as you have this website running up, then you are paying for it. You're paying for the domain, you're paying for the hosting. But when someone can get it for free, it's obviously a value. So the other thing is that if you have like this, like we were talking about, this component security issue in general, like you need one vulnerability, and then you can scan all the web to find all the websites that have the same kind of software to just basically host ads and all these different things. So money is obviously one of the reasons, but the thing is that it's very opportunistic. So nobody is actually coming to your website and trying to hack your website. It's like they are hacking the software that is installed on your website.
Is it ever an actual person? Is it? Do you think there's actual people?
Eventually, there are actual people who write those exploits.
Yeah, but they're not actually. So, for example, if your website does get hacked, it's not usually a person
there's no
sitting there.
someone sitting there and hacking your website.
You imagine it like on a movie or something. Some guy, wearing a dark mask or something like that.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
So they're trying to hack into your website so that they can basically take over the computer that's running your website, so that they can do stuff with that computer.
Yeah. So
what stuff do they want to do with that computer?
I think like in the end of the last year, or kind of like in the middle of 2018, I would say, there was like this huge spike of crypto mining, for example. So like this is very obvious reason, it's resources on the internet. It's very easily accessible. So, just taking over these resources is, already a big value. So, that's actually, getting access to the
actual money.
Yeah. So access to the actual computer, let's say, that is running your website. But the other thing is that, just running ads, if you have 50,000 websites running your own ads, it's money.
And then I've heard of these things, command and control, where they can create networks of these computers, and they can then go out and do bigger nasty stuff and take down bigger things, because there's a whole network of things flooding the internet with traffic.
Yeah. So DDoS attacks are very, it's a common thing that, hacked websites are being used for that. But also other, actually, if you look at, for example, if we analyze our firewall logs, what we see very often is that the IPs that are attacking other websites are actually the IPs of some very big hosting companies. So this means that basically all these hosting companies already have a lot of websites hacked. So these hacked websites are used to hack on other websites. So, it's all the bots. It's like resources that you can use to, put like automated scripts running. And these scripts are basically just searching all the time for the new websites to hack. And it just spreads and,
So sometimes it might be about generating money for like cryptocurrency. Sometimes it's about taking down another property. Maybe, I don't know, they're a commercial rival or something.
Yeah.
But what do these hackers do? Where do they live? Are they like organized? Do they like have offices in places? Do they, what are they even, where do they live? Where do they habit? What's going on?
I think there's like very different kind of adversaries when it comes to that. Like there's some, I think it was a few years ago where there was actually some guy caught who was running like a team to do like this SEO kind of injection thing, just to, basically sell services for other companies to bring down the SEO of the rivals.
So there was a business, actual business with employees to destroy other people's websites.
So basically I would go like, I have this service, let's say, with like 4 people who are basically hacking websites to do like SEO spam. And then you come to me as a service and say like, hey, I have this competitor who has like a really good SEO, please ruin it. So what we would do is that we use all these hacked websites to create like this black hat SEO. But Google, understands that, hey, this is a black hat SEO. So they basically penalized the whole rival of yours. So this is the actual service that like some companies have provided. and being getting caught with.
Man alive, you can barely take it in, can you?
But you would pay a pretty decent amount of money for that service, for getting your rival completely out from the search engine
You can turn them
results.
off the internet for half a day or whatever, depending on
It's
how quickly
actually,
they can come back up.
it's for a longer period. It's like few months at least.
And you ruin their search engine ranking in the process.
That's the main point, ruining their search engine ranking, so you would come up as the main thing.
Yeah, and do you ever get sort of metrics and like to be able to convincingly prove that somebody, like you can point the finger at a particular individual or IP address, and do you ever hand this stuff over to the authorities? Or?
We have handled some of the stuff over to authorities when it comes to defacing, for example, because we have a lot of kind of internal tools, as I was already saying, like this static code analysis, and we own a database of defacements. So basically, we get like 2,000 to 3,000 attacks every single day, like information about hacked websites every single day. There's government websites, there's all different sorts of websites, and then these sites are specifically being defaced. So there's some political propaganda texts on the website, and there's all this different stuff. So we have sometimes the IP addresses and user agents and all the information of where the attack came from. So we can really quickly check if this user used a VPN to hide or mask their location and stuff. And if didn't, then we have actually kind of given this information to authorities. But the thing is that local authorities don't really do anything if the attacker is from Philippines, for example. So
it's a hard battle. Do you get the sense though that the people that are doing this are actually clever? They're clever people with,
I think sometimes
capabilities. They're
not always.
No,
not
okay.
always. Like a lot of malware that you can find is very basic. A lot of that code is from 10 years back. When the PHP shells were used heavily, like they are used also now. But then sometimes you can find very decent obfuscations for the code. So you can just open up the code and you're like, hell, it's even pretty difficult to understand what the code actually does, because it's just made to be so hardly understandable.
And of course there's the sort of increasing difficulty of the you hear about these sort of events like Pwn to Own and things like that, where the guys show up and they're offered significant. Well, actually, you can earn a decent living if you're an ethical hacker.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But they go and so these guys are the people that could create these exploits. They're as luck would have it, they're creating the exploits and then giving them to the companies. But still, the level of sophistication, they get some sort of buffer overflow over here, and then they stick another thing on top of that, and then 5 things later, they manage to flip a bit on the hard disk, which does something else, and suddenly, boom, we're in. We've done it. Yeah. We've got out of Chrome's sandbox or whatever it might be. And you just think, yeah, these guys, they're clever, and
they're very clever.
How do you, presumably there'll never be a point where you can say, yeah, we've done it. This is always going to be a battle from this point on until, well, forever.
Yeah. I mean, especially WordPress's ecosystem is in a position where not only actual development of a website is very simple, but also the hacking is very simple. Yeah. So you don't really need to be very clever to be able to hack a website nowadays. You just need to find, you don't even find the vulnerabilities yourselves anymore, to get in. So, you can just find some plugin vulnerability that was, even, RevSlider had this issue, I think 2 or 3 years ago.
I remember.
It was like a havoc, it's still being exploited, it's still happening, so even for some guy to just, get their hands dirty to, with the hacking stuff, it's so easy.
Yeah, amazing. Let's change the subject a bit. Stop talking about security. Let's talk about that place that we're at and this event. I know that you said that you've never been to a WordCamp in Europe before. This is first time. First time for me at WordCamp Europe as well. Have you got a list of events that you're going to go to, things that you're going to attend, people that you specifically want to see? What I'm wondering is, if you're a kind of a plugin developer, let's say that somebody's listening to this and they're a plugin developer and they're never taking the step of coming here, have you come with the social thing, or are you going to go and find people and try to increase your business whilst you're here?
Yeah, I think it's kind of both ways still, kind of find people who are in a position where they are thinking I manage 50 websites. I actually should, think about how what's going to happen if one of those are taken down, or if the servers that where I'm hosting all these 50 sites, are they even secure to like the malware won't start moving between all those websites, and like what can happen at this point. So I think there's definitely people like that here as well that I would like to speak and to meet. But also I think it's more like this community feeling, get in touch with already customers and talk to them and see what they see, how they actually feel about the product and so forth. So I think it's like if you're a plugin developer, for example, I think this is a place where you should be, like definitely, because that's the place where you can actually understand how people are using plugins and what they are looking from them, and you can get like instant feedback.
Are you quite a confident person? Do you like walk into an event like this and you're happy to like just rock up to people and start talking, or are you a little bit more reserved and have to break the ice a bit?
I think I'm somewhere in the middle. Well, I have practiced a lot. Like I've been to a lot of different conferences over the past 2 or 3 years. So like over time, you kind of break the barrier. But it's still, it depends. Like sometimes I don't feel like just jump in.
I think you get better at these things, don't you? You just sort of practice it, and you develop strategies and little one-lines that you can give out.
Yeah.
And I was, my first WordCamps, I kind of just stood and kind of felt a bit awkward. And then something happened and I started talking to somebody, and suddenly a couple of other guys show up, and before you know it, after you've done this a little bit, the whole thing starts to mature, and then people introduce you to other people. Yeah, it's great. I mean, look, there's probably like 100 people maybe not that, but 3,000 people have come here.
3,000.
Yeah, 3,000 tickets sold, and they reckon that 90% are going to show. So 2,700. Do you like the WordPress community? I mean, even if you've not been to like the events, there's all the stuff going on in make.wordpress.org or
Facebook
Slack
groups.
or Facebook group. Yeah.
Crazy.
But I mean, it's amazing, isn't it?
It's
Really interesting. Do you sort of get into that and get stuck into it? Would you say you've made any friends in WordPress?
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, I met you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, like, actually, I think it's really cool. I mean, I wasn't so much into this. Like, I think it's a really new thing for me, actually. All this Facebook group and stuff. But I've realized that just to be there, when people have issues, just help them out. Just do everything without asking anything back. I think this is like something that will eventually get you a lot back.
Yeah, I think so.
So
yeah.
I think this is my strategy right now, just to be open and just to talk with the community and help people with the stuff that I know. And if I have any issues, that I will also post there, like on these groups and stuff, and people help me as well. So I think it's just the resources that everyone should use.
It's kind of like a famous thing. People talk about this WordPress community, and I believe it. Whether it's whether I've convinced myself of its truth or not, I am convinced that there is something pretty special about this community, WordPress. I don't know what it is.
It's, I think, very well like built up community around open source software. I don't know much of an open source software that has such a big community. So
but also I think the nature of people who participate in open source, I think there's something about those people. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I mean, I've been to quite a lot of these events now, and it just gets easier every time. And to be honest with you, I've been to lots of events that are not connected with WordPress, and pretty much all the time I was kind of not looking forward to it. It was just like, you've got to go because you've got to go. You're made to go. Whereas these, I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm packing the bag and I'm getting excited, and doing stuff like this, recording these podcasts. It's just exciting. It's just interesting, and
it feels different, right? Like I've also been to like Web Summit and to these startup conferences and all this like very suit and tie and stuff. It's different. It's like it's like I feel like this when I've been to Web Summit and so forth. It feels more like work. It's like you go there, you have like agenda, you have to meet as many people as possible, network. But here it feels more like, easygoing.
Well, it's very relaxed. And
I've never went to a conference with shorts.
Yeah, shorts. Yeah, I got my sandals on, I got a t-shirt on, I've got some shorts on, and that. Yeah, and walk into the place, and usually there's like some sort of social thing going on. People sitting down, having coffee, having a beer or whatever. And then you go to the talks, and there's lots of different options. Here we are literally in the hallway,
Yeah.
And there are people.
It's very good spot.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Yeah, we've done very well standing here. It's just people hanging out, having a chat, making friends. It's lovely. It's really nice. I'm looking forward to the next few days.
Yeah.
Are you going to be sticking around till the very end?
Yeah, we are actually. I think our flight goes on Sunday. Yeah, so
You're staying around right until the bitter end.
I can't wait for the meetup today. So I really am. There's like two options. If there's gonna be a lot of people coming because we have reached out to a lot of people, or there's gonna be like no people coming up and we have so much beer for ourselves.
Are you going to go and see Matt later today?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that room will demonstrate just how big this event actually is.
Yeah, definitely.
It's happening in a couple of hours' time.
Which track?
So you have to go, I presume it's track 1, I don't really know, but I presume it's track 1. But I went into the room the other day, a couple of days ago while they were setting up. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's enormous. And presumably it's going to be full. It's the big ticket.
Yeah.
Well, I've got, I'll hand the mic to you and say, tell us anything you want, drop a URL or a Twitter handle or whatever you want.
If anyone wants to, learn more about WebARX, for example, they can go to WebARXsecurity.com. Go and get your free trial, and there's like this chat bubble on the bottom, and you can write there and say, hey, I want to talk to Oliver, so I will, I can reply to you directly from there. And if there's someone listening, I don't know when are you putting this live?
We're not sure yet. Maybe a couple of weeks, maybe more.
So I was thinking like if you're listening to it now and then you're coming to our meetup, then but I guess not now.
No. Well, Oliver, Sild, enjoy the rest of your WordCamp. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
One of the purposes of the Press Forward podcast is to lift the lid on topics that don't get talked about enough, to allow people to share their stories so that other people might listen, and by listening, they may gain an understanding that they're not alone. There are other people out there who have faced the same situations that you are facing. They have found a way through and can offer support to you on your journey. Maybe that person is already in your life, but they might not be. And that's what WP & Up is here for, to connect you with the support that you need. The Press Forward podcast is brought to you today by Green Geeks. Green Geeks offers a specially engineered platform that gives WordPress users web hosting that is designed to be the fastest, most secure and scalable hosting available in multiple data centers. Their WordPress hosting makes deploying and managing WordPress websites easy, with automatic one-click install, managed updates, real-time security protection, SSD RAID 10 storage arrays, Power Cacher, and expert help 24/7 to make for the best web hosting experience. And we thank Green Geeks for their support of the Press Forward podcast. That's it for this week. Please let us know if you're enjoying the podcast, if you're finding it useful and helpful. You can reach out to us at wpnup.org/contact, and you can donate at /give. Remember that there's a serious point to all of this though, and that is that WP & Up is here to provide help and support. That help is available for you or people you know, and it can be easily accessed at the wpnup.org website. Please spread the word about this podcast. Tell your friends and subscribe on your favourite podcast player. And remember that together we can #press forward.